Hi, I'm Andrew Walsh, librarian at Sinclair Community College. When you think of librarians, you probably think of books, or in a college setting, you may think we just teach how to click buttons and research databases. But what librarians really aim to teach is broader, what we call information literacy. How to use information to make decisions, solve problems, or create new knowledge. Or for today's video, how to know what to trust online in the age of fake news. If you see a controversial claim on social media, how can you check if it's credible? Fake news is far from a new concept, but what is new is the ease with which anyone can make a professional looking website in minutes and the viral sharing potential of social media where stories can spread without anyone reading past the headline. I'm not actually a fan of the phrase fake news because calling things fake versus true ignores the complexities that make this such a difficult issue today. When most people say fake news, they're thinking of sources that are completely false and made up, a hoax, something that absolutely didn't happen. And although we do see this, what's much more common today are stories that have some basis in truth but are shown out of context in a misleading or biased way, often with intent to deceive. Maybe it's something from years ago presented like it's happening now, or a bogus headline or social media caption that fits an agenda but doesn't reflect the real story. So how do we identify these misleading sources? To evaluate websites, many people recommend what I call the checklist approach. A list of things to check on that website to see if it's credible. What are the author's credentials? What does the domain name end in? Are there spelling or grammatical mistakes? Are there ads on the page? While individually these are all good questions, and going over them can be a useful exercise for an academic assignment, it's been proven that this approach does not work in the real world. If you see a story while scrolling on your phone, are you really going to take the time to answer 20 or more questions to evaluate it? And even if you did, what if some criteria say the source is good and others say it's bad? More importantly, these checklists deal with surface features like domain names and about pages, things that can easily be manipulated by bad actors. So we need a different approach for evaluation. Sometimes, however, we're too lazy to do any extra work before sharing something. And if it says something we already agree with, we're much less likely to think that it may not be trustworthy. But I'm going to try to show you that verifying online credibility is fast, it's easy, and it's much more effective than going through a long checklist for every page you visit. Instead, we're going to try to build habits or shortcuts that make the evaluation process easier. And the most crucial habit to develop is to leave the source entirely to check its credibility. Get off the page. This is the difference between professional fact checkers and other smart people who still get tricked by misinformation, which has been shown in large-scale studies like this one from Stanford. The fact checkers immediately left the source in question, while others wasted time looking over the page itself, and then they still got it wrong in the end. So let's get a little more specific. The main habits for evaluation are to investigate the source, to find better coverage, and to trace claims back to their original context. It's true that the internet can quickly spread a fake story, but with the entire internet at our fingertips, it's also easier than ever to take that story and verify it. So first, you want to investigate the authority of the source. That can be the author, the name of the publication or website, whoever's responsible for the content. But remember to get off the page and don't just read the About Us or other things on the site itself. Instead, verify with Google and Wikipedia. Wikipedia, for one, is often criticized for its reliability, and I don't recommend citing it directly in an academic paper. But it's great at verifying if a publication is legit or an author is biased. You may find your site is a known hate site, or an award-winning news organization, or a source with a well-known political slant. When you Google a source or author, do the same kind of thing. What are other trusted sources saying about it? If the author or site has no results at all, be skeptical, but look for more clarification using other methods. The next shortcuts involve separating a source from its main claims. In other words, if it says something big happened, a celebrity died, a government passed a controversial law, a scandal was uncovered, remember that if it's true, other outlets will be covering it too. So go to Google and see if you can find other, better sources for what yours is saying. If so, are they presenting that story in the same way, or are they making different conclusions? What are the facts that no one disputes, and what is spin or appeals to emotion? These days, there are even a lot of fact-checking websites out there, so for a viral story, you may get lucky and find someone has already evaluated it in detail. If you can't find your claim, it doesn't instantly mean it's false, but again, you need to verify it using the other methods. Similarly, your source is rarely the original context for what it claims. Most news articles, blogs, and other websites are what you'd call secondary sources, reporting on something that first happened elsewhere. That original source could be anything from a research study to a speech to a tweet. Don't just ask, can I trust this random article I found, but rather, is there an original source that I can go to? By going to the original source, you remove someone else's interpretation, spin, or bias, which allows you to make your own conclusions. To do this, you might be able to find a link to where the site got its info, or a citation you can find in a library database, or a phrase you can Google. If a source doesn't say where it got its info, again, be very skeptical. So these 3 habits all involve getting off the page. But there's one more step, and it's actually the very first thing to do before hitting Google or Wikipedia, and that is to stop and reflect. All of us have cognitive biases that make us more likely to seek out and trust ideas we already believe. So honestly consider your emotional state. For example, if you're angry or worried before you engage with news content. Also ask whether you already know the source in question, because if you do, you don't need to spend as much time researching it. Finally, consider your ultimate goal. Is this a topic you're just curious about for yourself? Is it something you want to share with your network? Something you want to put in your research paper? These different purposes all require different standards for evaluation. By taking a minute to reflect on yourself and knowing what you're reading before you read it, you take a big step against the culture of misinformation. There's also a handy acronym for these strategies, which comes from Mike Caulfield of the Digital Polarization Initiative. You can think of SIFT as a way to remember these action steps. In my next video, I'll show some more detailed examples of these habits in action. I'll see you then.